Hello students, welcome back to Abhigyan Academy. In today's video lecture, we would be discussing about the human skeletal system. Alright, we'll see that what is the human skeleton, what are different parts of it, uska kaam kya hai, and the important points like cartilages, tendons and so on and so forth. It's a very important topic in bio. Okay? Although the number of questions are not very high, but if you do this chapter, these are sure shot mark brownie points for you in the exam, because many students they skip this part and in the end they lose out on very easy marks in the examination. So let's go ahead. Okay? The human skeletal system. Okay? The human skeleton. What are the functions of the skeleton? Let us first try to understand that. And what are the functions of the skeleton? See, try to understand that the first and foremost function of the human skeletal system is support and protection. Now, what does this mean? See, the bones in our body, the bones that are the part of the skeletal system, the bones give proper frame and shape to our body. ये जो हमारे body का posture है, if you look at the muscles in the body, the organs, they will all split apart. They will fall apart. They won't be in one place. Our body will become a jelly-like substance. But it is not the case. Why? Because our body is given a proper and strong frame, a proper support and structure by the skeletal system. And second, it gives protection. For example, the brain, such a delicate organ, even a little amount of tuck here can do damage to your brain. But this is not the case. Why? Because your brain is well protected by your skull, which is a part of the skeletal system. Above that, if we also look at the heart is well protected by the sternum right here. The lungs are protected by the ribs. Our spinal cord is enclosed within the backbone, the spine, the vertebra, in the vertebral column. So this is how skeletal system protects us. Second is movement. Why movement? Because to move our muscles, we need a proper framework. We cannot move our muscles without a proper posture. That posture is provided by the skeletal system. हम जब move करते हैं तो हमें अपने body को एक proper direction में move करने के लिए एक proper support system चाहिए. We need joints. All these things are provided by the skeletal system. Mineral storage. Now, how mineral storage? Because our bones are very hard substances. Why? Because bones contain a high amount of calcium. So, bones naturally become a place for mineral storage. ठीक है? Bones में mineral store होते हैं, especially calcium. That is why bones are so hard in nature. They are so protective. And last but not the least, and one of the most important is hematopoiesis. Now, what is hematopoiesis? See, our bones are hollow substances, which means bones के अंदर खाली जगह होता है. And inside the bone, we have something known as the bone marrow. ठीक है? If you guys have ever had red meat or mutton in your homes, you would see कि मटन का जो वो बड़ा सा गोल हड्डी होता है, inside that there is a soft substance, brown color का. That is nothing but the bone marrow. वो हमारे body में भी होता है. Inside our bone, we have a certain substance known as the bone marrow. Now, our red blood cells, the RBCs, are produced inside the bone marrow. So, blood cell formation, this particular process of blood cell formation is known as hematopoiesis. So, indirectly, skeletal system is helping in that also. Because bone marrow में जो blood cell form हो रहा है, the bone marrow is protected and stored inside our bones only. ठीक है? So directly, indirectly, our bones, our skeletal system is only helping in the formation of blood cells. And please, let me tell you, without the blood, our body is useless. All the jobs of the body, transportation of oxygen, transportation of hormones, transportation of food, all of it, transportation of carbon dioxide from the rest of the body to the lungs, oxygen from the lungs to the body, transporting the waste in the blood to the kidneys, Everything is done by the blood. So please understand, our body's most important part, blood, the manufacturing unit of the blood, is inside our skeletal system. So you can very well understand how important the skeletal system is for our body. All right. Now, our skeletal system is broadly divided into two parts. All right. If we look at the blue shaded bones, the bones that are shaded in blue color, these bones make up the axial skeletal system. Okay? The axial skeletal system consists of a total of 80 bones, 80. Okay? And the bones that are shaded in the red color, okay, these bones are part of the other type, which is the appendicular skeleton or the appendicular skeletal system. Okay? Now the appendicular skeleton consists a total of 126 bones. Now if you make a sum of 80 and 126, you get the total that our human body has a total of 206 bones. It has a total of 206 bones. Okay? Now, let me tell you something. When we are born as babies or infants, they contain more than 400 bones in them because bones are not properly joined and the bones are very, very delicate. That is why we say that handle the babies carefully. Too much of wear and tear can give them a bone damage or a fracture. Okay? So, because of this very purpose, children have a lot of bones in their bodies. So, what happens is that as and when we keep growing, the bones in the babies, they start joining to each other, and join hote in an average healthy human adult, the number of bones comes down and settles at 206. 80 in the axial skeleton, 126 in the appendicular skeleton, a total of 206. Now let us try and have a look at the axial skeletal system. Okay? The axial skeletal system consists of 80 bones. Okay? First, let us have a look at the skull. Okay? Now, the back side of the skull, this particular part, this part of the skull is known as the cranium or the cranial region. This is the region of the skull that protects the brain. ये brain को protect करके रखता है यहाँ, ठीक है? तो skull का जो cranial region है, the cranial region contains 8 bones in total, ठीक है? Then the jaw part, the part near the jaw, this part of the skull, this particular bone is known as the hyoid bone, ठीक है? And the facial region, नाम से ही पता चलता है कौन सा एरिया जो हमारे शक्ल के सामने का रीजन है स्कल का. This facial region consists of 14 bones, 1/4, ठीक है? Then we have the vertebral column. Now let us understand what is the vertebral column, ठीक है? Let us first understand what is the vertebral column. What we have is that we have, you see these small segments, you see the small segments here, ठीक है? These small segments in single number, इन छोटे छोटे pieces को कहा जाता है vertebra, ठीक है? ऐसे छोटे छोटे segments होते हैं, गोल होते हैं, बीच में जगह होता है, ठीक है? So many vertebra, they come together, and when all these vertebra come together, the all total stack is known as the vertebral column, also known as the spine or the backbone. Also known as the spine or the backbone. Now, try to understand the upper part of the backbone is known as the atlas, the one which is near our neck, this one. ठीक है? And एक और चीज, ये जो circular rings है, these vertebra, they are formed around our spinal cord. ठीक है? They are formed around our spinal cord. So if we look at the whole vertebral column, we see that our spinal cord that comes from the brain, the spinal cord coming from the brain passes through inside the backbone of our body, and hence our backbone protects the spinal cord. That is why, God forbid, but if anybody meets a road accident or injures the backbone, they end up also injuring their spinal cord, जो backbone के अंदर होता है, and it results in drastic situations. It might also result in paralysis. ठीक है? Now these are some important parts of the vertebral column, the C7 bone, the T12, L5, S1 and CO. L5 one of the most important जो lower back area में होता है यहाँ पे. कभी कभी लोग अगर पीठ के बल गिर जाते हैं, they end up injuring their L5 joint. This is the one of the joints. ठीक है. ये जो C7, T12, L5, S1 और CO2 है, these are nothing but the joints, the joint area between these vertebrae जो नीचे के साइड आ रहा है, जिसको मैंने यहाँ पे ब्लू कलर में शेड करके रखा. ठीक है. नाउ कमिंग टू द रिब केज. ठीक है. If you look at the rib cage is formed of many ribs. These are our ribs जो यहाँ पे जो हड्डी है. ठीक है. How many ribs do we have? We have 12 pairs of ribs. We have 12 pairs. ठीक है. Because दोनों साइड में से दो दो आते हैं ना, so we have 12 pairs. So pair 1 to pair 7, these are true ribs. Why true ribs? True ribs are the ones which I have marked in red. Why true ribs? They are called true ribs because if you see, they complete a whole circle starting from the backbone to the front. ठीक है. Then the ones marked in yellow, these are false ribs. Why false? Because ये पीछे से आते तो है बैकबोन से शुरू होके, but they do not complete a full circle. ये आधे में ही they go and join into the middle bone. अभी middle bone क्या है? I'll come to that. ठीक है. And the last two false ribs are from 8 to 10, and the last two pairs 11 to 12. ठीक है. These are known as floating ribs. Why? Because ये सामने आते ही नहीं है, ये बस पीछे के साइड थोड़ा सा आधा निकला हुआ. They are floating ribs and they are not connected to the bone in the middle. Now what is the bone in the middle? Ribs के बीच में जो ये एक बड़ा सा bone है, एक flat structure का एक hard bone है ये. This particular bone that is present here, this bone is known as sternum. Now true ribs, they complete a full circle from the backbone to the sternum. False ribs, they start from the backbone but they do not complete a full circle, but still somehow they get connected to the sternum. And the floating ribs, they form a semicircle, they don't connect to the sternum at all. ठीक है. So this was our axial skeletal system, the axial skeleton with 80 bones. Now coming on to the appendicular skeleton with 126 bones. What does it consist of? First, it consists of the limb systems. What are the limbs? Limbs are our hands and legs. ठीक है. अब जो चार पैरों पे चढ़ने वाले जानवर है, for the four-legged creatures, since they have limbs at the front and the back, for them we say the forelimb जो सामने के दो पैर है and the hind limbs जो पीछे के दो पैर. But since we humans have evolved and we are two-legged, हम ऊपर सीधा खड़े हो गए vertically, we are horizontal. So for us, four limbs को since ये ऊपर आ गया है, our hands, we call them as upper limbs, and नीचे के पैरों को we call as the lower limbs, जो basically चार पैरों वालों में हम उनको hind limbs कहते हैं. And in case of birds, aves, ठीक है, the four limbs have converted and modified into wings. Why? To help them fly. ठीक है. Now let us look at the upper limb. Now this particular bone, this one, this particular bone, this area, ठीक है, this bone is known as the pectoral girdle. ठीक है. It is known as the pectoral girdle, and our upper limb, our hand, is connected to this pectoral girdle. ठीक है. तो pectoral girdle में क्या क्या होता है? The pectoral girdle consists of the clavicle, the scapula, and the upper part of the scapula. This is the lower part of the scapula. The upper part of the scapula is called acromion. ठीक है. Now our arms, our upper limbs are connected to the pectoral girdle. If you look carefully, there is a small space or cavity. Cavity का मतलब क्या होता है? Cavity means an empty space. खाली जगह को we call as cavity. ठीक है. हम जब कहते हैं दांत में कैविटी हुआ, इसका मतलब क्या है कि दांत के अंदर बैक्टीरिया ने खा के छेद कर दिया, वो दांत के अंदर का जगह खाली हो गया है, एम्प्टी स्पेस बन गया है दांत के अंदर. सो वी कॉल दैट एज कैविटी. ठीक है. सो कैविटी मींस एन एम्प्टी एरिया. सो पेक्टोरल गर्डल हैज अ सर्टेन कैविटी और अ स्पेस नोन एज द ग्लेनोइड कैविटी. ठीक है. इसी ग्लेनोइड कैविटी में द अपर लिम्ब इज कनेक्टेड. नाउ द अपर पार्ट ऑफ द अपर लिम्ब, दिस पार्ट, this bone is known as the humerus, and below this bone we have two bones. Okay, in the lower part of the upper limb, the two bones are radius and the ulna. Okay, and the fingers are known as carpals. Then coming to the lower part, this region, this particular bone on our hips, the hip bone, this bone is known as the pelvic girdle. Okay, this bone is known as the pelvic girdle. And the pelvic girdle has three parts. The upper part is the ilium, the middle part right here, this part basically, this is the ischium, and the lower part near the pubic region, the pubic bone, that is known as the pubis. Okay. Now, if you look at the pectoral girdle, it had a certain cavity and space called glenoid cavity, जिसके साथ the upper limb connected. Similarly, हमारे pelvic girdle में भी एक जगह होता है, एक slot होता है, like a cavity. It is called acetabulum. Acetabulum में ही our lower limbs or our legs are connected. ठीक है? Now the upper bone of the lower limb, the thigh bone basically, is known as the femur. Now remember, femur is the longest bone of the human body. If you read the Mahabharata, where in the final battle of Mahabharata, Bhim kills Duryodhana. He basically breaks his thigh bone. He breaks his femur to kill him in the. ठीक है? So that is the femur, the thigh bone, the bone that is here. Okay? Below our knees, the knee area. The knee has a bone called the patella, a circular type of bone which helps in the movement and support of the knees. Below the knee, we have again two bones, the tibia and the fibula. Okay? And the fingers on our legs, that is our toes. हाथ वाले को कहते थे carpals. Our toes are known as tarsals. ठीक है? अब कंपैरिजन देके रखा है. ठीक है? पेक्टोरल गर्डल में जो जगह है, खाली जगह जहां पे अपर लिम्ब लगता है, उसको ग्लेनॉइड कैविटी बोलते हैं. पेल्विक गर्डल में जहां पे लिम्ब्स आके अटैच होते हैं, दैट कैविटी और दैट स्पेस इज नोन एज द एसिटेबुलम. ठीक है? सो दिस वाज आवर अपेंडिकुलर स्केलेटन विद 126 bones. ठीक है? नाउ लेट अस अंडरस्टैंड व्हाट आर कार्टिलेजेस. ठीक है? कार्टिलेजेस बेसिकली क्या होता है? कार्टिलेजेस आर सम काइंड ऑफ सॉफ्ट टिश्यूज. ठीक है? पतले टिश्यूज होते हैं जो बेसिकली कॉम्प्रेशन रेजिस्ट करते हैं. They make sure that our bones are extended properly and our bones don't get compressed in any way. They are solid in nature, but they are pliable. Pliable मतलब they can extend, they can bend, they are pretty flexible in nature. ठीक है? And cartilages में जो cells होते हैं, those cells are known as chondrocytes. The cells present in cartilages are known as chondrocytes. ठीक है? And they're avascular. Avascular का मतलब ये है उनमें vascularity नहीं. There is no pipeline, there is no transport in cartilages. हमारे बॉडी में ट्रांसपोर्ट किस चीज का है? ब्लड वेसल्स का है, जिसमें से ब्लड जाता है. सो इफ दे आर avascular, they do not have transport means कि कार्टिलेज में कोई डायरेक्ट ब्लड सप्लाई नहीं है. देयर आर नो ब्लड वेसल्स इन द कार्टिलेजेस. ठीक है? अब कार्टिलेजेस के दो टाइप्स है मेन, लिगामेंट्स एंड टेंडन्स. इफ यू लुक केयरफुली, लिगामेंट्स क्या कर रहे हैं? लिगामेंट्स आर जॉइनिंग टू बोन्स. जो दो बोन्स को ज्वाइन करके रखता है, दैट इज अ लिगामेंट. एंड व्हाट इज अ टेंडन? टेंडन वो होता है जो बोन को मसल के साथ ज्वाइन करके. ठीक है? सो टेंडन्स आर दोज टिश्यूज दैट ज्वाइन बोन्स टू मसल्स एंड लिगामेंट्स आर दोज टिश्यूज दैट ज्वाइन बोन्स टू अनदर. ठीक है? इसको याद कैसे रखें? एक निमोनिक देकर रखें, BLB, बोन लिगामेंट बोन, मतलब दो बोन्स के बीच में लिगामेंट ज्वाइन करके रखें. ठीक है? एंड टेंडन्स के लिए कैसे याद करें? MTB, मसल टेंडन बोन, मींस मसल और टेंडन के बीच में, सो मसल और बोन के बीच में टेंडन ने ज्वाइन करके रखा. सो दिस इज हाउ यू कैन रिमेंबर. ठीक है? सो दिस वाज आवर स्केलेटल सिस्टम, a very important and conceptual topic in bio, also very important for you going to the armed forces, because your bones and your posture and your skeletal fitness is one of the most important parts for you if you want to get selected in the army. Your bones have to be healthy because you need to be physically fit. You need to have a good bone density. For that, it is advisable that you drink a lot of milk, okay, so that you have calcium in the body. Okay, you eat food like green leafy vegetables. Okay, go out in the early morning sun so that you get more vitamin D. That vitamin D will help you strengthen your bones. Okay? So these are certain things that you should need to keep in your mind as a defense aspect. Okay? I hope it was a helpful session for you all. Okay? I'll see you guys in another video very soon. Until then, take care, goodbye, and Jai Hind.